Welcome in to Cover Crimson. My name is Emily Grace McWhorter, and on this very cold Wednesday afternoon, I am joining Clint Lamb to talk all things Alabama football and give you guys a check-in for your midweek pick-me-up. Clint, what are we chatting about today, and are you staying warm?
A lot more difficult to stay warm nowadays, it seems like, and no snow. So I'm a little bit upset. We're not going to linger on it too much, but we're going to be talking about the running backs and the off-ball linebackers. We've already talked about multiple other position groups: wide receiver, corners, offensive line, defensive line. We try to position them or kind of match them up, one offense, one defense, that kind of makes sense. Like the offense goes against the defensive line, the wide receivers versus the corners.
Yep.
Your off-ball linebackers are typically the ones making the tackles on the running backs, and then we got quarterbacks and pass rushers, because the pass rushers, the edge guys, are getting after the quarterback, and then we got tight ends and safeties, because a lot of times, I mean, even though it's off-ball linebackers, it's also safeties covering tight ends. So today's the running backs and the off-ball linebackers, and it's two pretty good position groups for Alabama.
I'm excited. This is a very well thought out system over here at Cover Crimson. Clint will give us a 1 out of 5 star rating, and we've taken the liberty, guys, to let Clint have a little fun with this. And we can get some 0.75s, some 2.5, you name it. We don't really know where he'll go, but it's always fun to find that out. While you guys are arriving, let us know if you're experiencing any snow right now. I'm in Birmingham and I have no snow, just a lot of cold air outside. Very disappointing. But the beach got snow, Clint. What the heck?
Yeah, I mean, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, the entire Tiger Stadium is covered in snow, and we're up here in Birmingham. I feel like we're not right in the middle of the typical snowstorms, but we're in a position where if they're all getting it down there, we should be getting it up here. And I don't know what Mother Nature's doing, but I'm not happy with it right now.
So last show we talked about snow game compared to rain game, and we'll ask you guys again as you guys get into the show. Would you prefer to play a football game in a snow game or a rain game? But the caveat on the rain game was that it was a warm rain. It wasn't cold, it wasn't hailing, it wasn't sleeting. I think we both agreed we'd do a snow game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like either, but snow makes a lot more sense to me. The hits hurt worse, but I can't stand being wet and everything getting like really heavy on you. So yeah, I would tend to one rather. And just I feel like a snow game. I've never experienced that, so
Right,
just
I
the
agree.
experience of something new. Maybe I would play in a snow game and quickly be like, you know what, I'll take the rain. But based off of I've played in cold games, I guess, so I don't think it'd be too much different.
So should we recap poker, Clint? Is it time
Yes,
for that?
yes, it is absolutely time for that.
So for those that aren't aware, I play poker and I play pretty regularly. And I won my first game of the season of my tenure in my poker club last Monday. And so we get on with Clint for Cover Crimson. I'm in great spirits. Obviously, did mess up my week a little bit because lack of sleep, right? When you're head to head, when you get to that point, it's for us, we start at 8. So we're looking at like midnight. And I am very sad to report to you guys that as I was trying to defend my title, I came in dead last this week.
Dead last.
Dead last. And can I tell you how I got out? It's crazy.
Yeah, I would love to
Okay.
know.
So I'd already rebought and really nothing was connecting. My cards weren't great. I was even getting face cards and nothing was really coming to fruition. So I rebuy and same thing happening. I'm basically just giving away money on the blinds. We played tournament style. And so I get dealt two tens. The flop comes out and it's ace, ace, 10, full house on the flop. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to shove all in. I've got to at least double up, try something. But I need people, on the pot. And so I raise it to, I get one person, two leave. And then I say, all right, all in. And the guy next to me, who I adore, his name is Damien, he calls. So I turn over and I had said the line, I'm ready to go home. Like I'm going all in. You can send me home.
The old bluff
Knowing,
move.
yeah, I have a full house. So I turn over my two pair and it was the most painful, I think, loss I've had. Quads on the river, 4 aces. he had the other ace. 2% chance of that happening. Beat my full house.
Sometimes it's just not your night.
It was not my night.
That's a crazy way to end it.
Yeah.
That's one of those where even if you're Damien, you feel bad.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, he made the right call. I mean, he probably didn't. I mean, yeah, I mean, he knew he had an ace. He probably didn't put you on 2 10s.
No.
There's no way. He probably thought, I don't know what he thought, you might have had maybe a straight draw or something, but that is that's a wild the highs and lows, right?
It is. And on Wednesdays, I will be sure to update you guys on my poker happenings and whatever the latest update is. But unfortunately, I'm really sad to say that I went from quite literally first to worst in the matter of a week. But like you said, that's poker. Not my best night, but I'm sure I'll be back. And like I said, on Wednesdays, I will update you guys on the happenings.
Yeah, that sounds great. Bob, thanks for checking in, brother. Roll Tide to you. Nick Harden as well.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys for hopping in. So running backs and linebackers.
Let's start with the running backs. And I'm curious about your thoughts on this position group. And I want to start with your evaluation of how this group was utilized this past season. Now, obviously, I feel like we're going to have to talk about Jalen Milroe's involvement in that and the quarterback competition coming up. But I do want your thoughts and kind of your evaluation of what you saw from that group and what you expect going forward.
Yeah, I don't feel like it was utilized correctly. I think that was a product of multiple things happening. Jalen Milroe, when it's some sort of read play, it's a zone read. Him keeping the football. Now, sometimes that's dictated based off what the defense is giving you. There's nothing you can do about that. Other times it was Jalen Milroe just making the wrong read, and he's keeping it when he should really be handing it off. Sometimes that worked out because Jalen Milroe just has that type of rushing ability. Sometimes it didn't. But then it was also like for a majority of the season, it just felt like the flow with the run game. It was like as soon as they ran into any sort of issue, they could have some success. They'd run the football, pick up 7 yards. They'd run the football, pick up 4 or 5, run the football again, pick up 1. Maybe it's a tackle for loss or something. And then at that point, it's just rest of the drive. Just know it. The running backs aren't touching the football again. And that's where I feel like there needed to be more of a commitment. But I also think the offensive line had some struggles with being able to get a consistent push. I think the running backs really couldn't get in any sort of flow or rhythm because it's a very rhythmic position. And when the quarterback is taking such a huge percentage of your runs, on top of the fact that you're still throwing the football and doing all those things, it's limited touches. So a guy like Justice Haynes getting 6-7 carries a game, I mean, how many opportunities are you giving him to actually get into any sort of rhythm? And then it's kind of alternating drives. Sometimes a guy would be out there for a little more than a drive, but it was just it was a combination of factors. But I mean, the product, I mean, you can look. The success and what it needed to be based off of the talent that you had in the offensive line room, the fact that you had a quarterback that was supposed to be a huge advantage in the +1 with the run game, on top of the talent that you had in the running back room, there was just no reason for them not to have more success. So it was a disappointing performance from the run game for sure.
So going forward, do you think that we'll see a change in that this coming season? Obviously, we're not in the minds of Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer. What are you anticipating? Do you feel like it'll be utilized more?
Yes, absolutely. Because, I mean, there's not a guy that's in that quarterback room right now that's a volume runner. Like with Jalen Milroe, that's a guy that, especially when nothing else was working, it felt like the entire offensive identity slowly started getting built around his ability to run the football. But, Ty Simpson's mobile. Austin Mack's got some mobility. Keelan Russell is definitely mobile. But none of those guys are going to be, you're not going to be giving them 12, 13, 14 carries, sometimes getting up there in the high teens, maybe even touching low 20s every once in a while. It's not going to happen. So if you're going to have a run game, it's going to be more so funneled through the traditional run game, which is with your running backs. And so I think just through that difference, the quarterback change, it's going to present more opportunities for the running backs. I think the offensive line, when you're playing things a certain way, when it's a bunch of read type options, you don't know who's going to be getting the football. This should be a lot more traditional and more of a classic approach to the run game, which I think is going to help everybody. and that's not really Jalen Milroe's fault. That was a strength of his. He had
Mm-hmm.
two offensive coordinators that kind of played into that strength because they understood that's the best way to win football games. It makes you vulnerable against certain opponents, but if you want to have consistent success offensively, or as consistent as you could possibly get, it was going to be done through Jalen Milroe's legs.
And I think we can both agree with Jalen Milroe. He was said all season, talked about as one of the most athletic men in the SEC, but in college football because of his ability with his legs. And at times you saw how good it could be. We saw LSU. But when a defense was able to shut that down, I think you hit the nail on the head, Clint, that the offensive identity was built around one person, and that was the quarterback, and that was Jalen Milroe. Obviously, we're going to see just how drastic those changes are going to be now that Coach DeBoer, Coach Sheridan have more of their own guys in there, have potentially a quarterback that fits better with the scheme that they've been used to at Washington. So I want to keep my eye on that for sure. But I guess what I want to make sure that everyone hears is that we are not saying that, Jalen Milroe is not an athletic quarterback, that he was not an incredible runner. I mean, a lot of times people said that he was a running back that could throw because of his ability. And I don't know if he would agree with that per se. I think that he really loved and enjoyed that quarterback position at Alabama. But all that to say, what makes you excited about this room going forward?
I think there's still a lot of talent in the running back room. Like I still love Jam Miller. Like going into last year, I thought the combination of Jam Miller and Justice Haynes was being completely slept on. I thought it was one of the better running back tandems in college football. Obviously, based off of the product and what we actually saw on Saturdays, you can't make that argument. And I do think some of that, a little bit of that, is attributed to the running backs and issues that they had, but it's such a small percentage. And so I still think Jam Miller is one of the more talented running backs in college football. If, I still think he's a top 10 back in college football. And I think that he's going to be now, whether it be, over the course of the season, Justice Haynes started off as the quote unquote starter, which I think was somewhat surprising to people because it's like, Damian Harris in that running back room with Josh Jacobs and Bo Scarborough. He was kind of the veteran guy. He decided to come back for his senior year. They rewarded him with that by making him the quote unquote starting running back. Jam being a year older than Justice Haynes, the fact that it started off the way that it did, it kind of, going in and was like, this is telling me Justice Haynes must be pretty special, because I think Jam Miller's pretty special when he's working ahead of him, getting those starting opportunities. And then just nothing much was really coming of it. And actually, for the most part, pretty much the entire season, Jam was still seeing a much larger share of the workload. And then, throughout the course of the season, about the midway point, probably game 7 or 8, it became Jam Miller being the starter and inconsistent success. But he's a talented running back. I really like Richard Young, runs with a lot of power, bigger back, former top 100 recruit. Draylon Washington, the more I watch him, the more I like him. I liked him pretty much from the jump, but as I've, dove in more, he kind of fits. I think he can do the between the tackles, between the guards a little bit better than Jam Miller or Justice Haynes, but he also has, some home run hitting abilities. He's effective as a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's short, he's stocky, he can do the pass protection thing. I just think that he's a good running back. And then you've got Daniel Hill, a big, burly, powerful back. You got Kevin Riley, another former top 100 recruit. You got a guy like A.K. Deere coming in who was, once a top 50 recruit. He kind of fell in the recruiting rankings. I think he's in like the mid 60s, but still one of the top, 2 or 3 running backs in the country. Love his completeness, love the versatility. Kalen DeBoer's offense, it wants to be versatile. The run game wants to be versatile. A.K. Deere can kind of do all that stuff. So I like the running back room a lot.
You mentioned Richard Young. I want you to stay there for a second. Tell us what to expect from him, because we've heard a lot about him, I feel like, in the last couple of weeks / month.
Man, he's so interesting because, my one concern, and it's not really a concern because I think that he is, but I just need to see it, and it's the fit in Kalen DeBoer's offense. Them going after Draylon Washington. I thought when they lost Justice Haynes, it's like, okay, you still got a bona fide RB1 and Jam Miller. You still got what we all view as a really quality RB2 and Richard Young, who was just needing more opportunities. You got, Daniel Hill, who got some experience, and he's a former 4-star guy. You got Kevin Riley, like I said, talented guy coming out of high school. You got Deere coming in. So it's like, okay, the running back position still is in pretty decent shape. and yet they still went out and they targeted Draylon Washington. And that kind of, where does he fit in? Like, I don't know what that means. Do they envision him as, the one thing I feel fairly confident in is that he's not the RB1, but did they bring him in to be the RB2? Like, are we thinking that's Richard Young and really it's Draylon Washington? Or is he, brought in to be the kind of the RB3? They want to get more of a committee approach now that they can commit to more running backs because you're not funneling so much through your quarterback. What about AK Deer? Like, they don't want to bank on him being able to come in and jump into RB3 or RB2. But, at the same time, he's a talented guy. I wouldn't be shocked if he could get involved in the conversation early. So then it's like, okay, where does he fit in? So with Richard Young, that's the one. It's like, I don't know where to peg him. We think RB2, that should be the safe assumption right now. But I will be curious to see how things look in the spring because it is possible that a guy like Draylon Washington could end up being the second fiddle to Jam Miller rather than Richard Young. But I mean, that to me, the only reason that would happen is if the coaching staff for whatever reason didn't feel like Richard Young was a great fit. But I don't foresee that being the problem. I'm still a huge Richard Young fan. I think he's going to do well.
So I think we need to add that to our list of position battles we're going to be monitoring come spring, summer, and fall camp, because people really may not even be thinking about that because there is that bona fide RB1, that RB2, which is super important, really isn't getting the attention per se. But that's what we bring you on Cover Crimson. Before Clint gives his star rating in the chat, I want you guys go ahead and give your star rating of this running back room. We'll let those file in as you kind of give your, wrap it up in a bow thoughts on the running back room.
Good group. And it's strange because I feel like running back is usually the group that I say this about like every offseason, but I just don't know what it's going to look like exactly. Like, I don't know what the pecking order is going to be. I don't know what the workload distribution is going to be. But one thing that we know about this room is we said, what you can't do in Kalen DeBoer's system is you can't throw the football to the extent that he did at Washington. On top of having multiple running backs involved in your run game, on top of having Jalen Milroe's legs involved too. Something's got to give somewhere. There's not that many offensive plays. So is it going to be the pass attempts? Is it going to be is Jalen Milroe's legs going to be more complimentary where he's getting 5-6 carries? Is it the running backs that take the hit? The running backs took the hit. Granted, so did the passing game. I mean, obviously the pass attempts were limited, but the biggest hit, in my opinion, compared to years past was the running backs. This is going to look a lot different. It's the SEC. We've seen Kalen DeBoer have success with one running back, Dylan Johnson at Washington. It was kind of funneled through him. This is too talented of a group, in my opinion, to be, it's too talented of a group to just have one or even just two guys involved. I think you're at least going to have a three-headed monster. That's going to limit the overall production of somebody. Is Alabama going to have a 1,000-yard rusher in 2025? It maybe, but probably not. But I think they're going to get multiple guys involved. They're all going to have success, and they'll play the passing game off of that. So I feel good about the room.
This is more of a, not trivia question, but just want your opinion. When do you feel like the last time Alabama had a really dominant running back room was?
Ooh. Dominant running back room. I think in 2020 with Brian Robinson Jr. and he had Najee Harris. A lot of people might argue like Jahmyr Gibbs and the success that he's had in the NFL, he was underutilized, but the limited success of Jace McClellan and like Roydell Williams, can you put them in an elite category as far as the room? Probably not. I think when you talk about top to bottom, just the room being absolutely loaded, I think 2018, 2018, they still had Damian Harris. They had, who ended up being an NFL running back, third round pick. They had Bo Scarborough, was drafted a little bit later, but when he was healthy, he was doing some really good things. You had Najee Harris, you had Josh Jacobs, both first round draft picks, just across the board. I mean, they could run 4 deep pretty easily. But I will say, I do think that this running back room, and I'm not comparing it to that by any means, but I do think it's as deep as it's been in a little while. As far as I could see 3, maybe even 4, even though I highly doubt 4, getting involved in that, and as far as the workload and the rotation.
All right, give me those stars, Clint. Let's see what you got.
I'm going to go with an even 4 stars. And I thought about going a little bit lower and going like a 3.75. But then I was flirting with like okay, but I also feel pretty good about it. I could go a little over 4 stars. I
Okay.
just decided for now, even though you've given me this flexibility for this position group, I decided to stick with a kind of even 4-star rating. And it's like all these others, and we'll reevaluate all these as we continue to climb through the off season. But right now, just the question marks. I can't go any higher because I don't know what Draylon Washington's going to look like. I don't know for sure what AK Deer is going to look like. I don't even know for sure what Richard Young's going to look like. So really the only sure thing we know about, in my opinion, even though we haven't technically seen it or we didn't see it in 2024, is Jam Miller. I feel really good about him emerging as a very, very, very good running back in not only the SEC but college football. But the rest is enough of a question where I feel good about it, but I don't think I could go any higher than a 4-star right now.
Let us know in the comments when the last time you felt like Alabama had a dominant running back room. And that's going to take us into the outside linebacker position. Clint, as always, give us your summary and then we'll wrap it up in a bow at the end.
Yeah, so the off-ball linebackers, what's crazy is that you lose a talent like Jahad Campbell, who I view as like a day one talent. Been diving into his tape a little more. I could see the NFL allowing him to fall to day 2. Right now I would say late day 1, early day 2 type of player to me. But that's, one of the best linebackers in college football. We don't know what Deontay Lawson's going to look like. As from a health standpoint, tearing your ACL, when is he back? It was late in the season. How healthy is he? These are all going to be questions that need to be answered. I mean, he's not going to be available in the spring. We know that for sure. But then you go out and you get Nakai Hill-Green, who I think was like a premier run-stopping linebacker at Colorado. I think he's got a great feel for playing the position. Diagnosis, plays well, got a great football IQ, strong communicator, and he's got leadership. Like, what's one of the big things as far as that locker room, he held not only other players, but he held himself accountable. And I think that's so critical in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer. So I love him. I think he got better in coverage as the season progressed. I love what he's going to bring to the room. I love Justin Jefferson, very explosive, twitched up athlete, can get sideline to sideline. I think right now, I mean, Deontay Lawson is like a redshirt senior.
Yeah.
Hill-Green is a grad. Justin Jefferson's a grad. So it's
experience.
like, tons of experience at the top. You lost a lot. Really hated losing Justin Okoronkwo, but still like Caden Jones. Love the trio of freshmen that they're bringing in. None of them were like super highly rated, but I think there's an argument to be made for all of them while they should have been ranked a lot higher. So I still like the room, and the top's still good. Like throughout the spring, they'll have 2 really good starters working in that group. Whenever Deontay Lawson comes back, I'll be curious to see how he kind of fits in with everything else, but he should only add to that room, and he should definitely continue to contribute.
2 things. One, what is the gap that Jahad Campbell is leaving behind? That's my first question for you. Let's break that down, and we'll go to number 2.
Here's what I think they're losing, and here's what I think they're gaining when you go from Jahad Campbell to Nakai Hill-Green. Jahad Campbell, from a run-stopping standpoint, I think he's got some pretty good traits, but he's long, 6'3". The lower body strength isn't exactly there. Was a little bit inconsistent as far as, pad level and working leverage. I thought Vanderbilt's a great example. He was catching way too much in the Vanderbilt game, and I think a lot of that was overthinking because of everything Vanderbilt was throwing at him. But I also think that it was just how Jahad Campbell plays. He's sideline to sideline, very rangy guy. Love the athleticism and everything. And I think from a pass rushing standpoint, being an off-ball blitzer, the versatility that he provides, I mean, being able to kind of kick out there and play some wolf to get Justin Jefferson on the field, move in and out of, like, you can go from a 3-4 look, 3-3-5, 3-4, kind of just the whole thing. When you've got a piece like Jahad Campbell, that's very easy to do. But I think from a run stopping perspective, because Deontay Lawson also kind of, he was a good run stopper. I think he's inconsistent with his block shedding ability. A guy like Hill-Green, man, that's one of the biggest things that he brings to the table is that he can stop the run. And Alabama needs to do that a lot more effectively in 2025 than they did in 2024. And so while I think you're losing a premier talent in Jihad Campbell, and I don't know if Hill Green's ever going to be viewed from an NFL perspective the same way that Jihad Campbell is. I think from a college perspective and really what Alabama needed to improve on and just having that communicator, because Deontay Lawson, we don't know, when he's going to be back and stuff. You needed somebody who could handle that green dot role. Nobody better, in my opinion, than Hill Green.
So my question for you too, Clint, is what do you feel like the biggest weakness was of that group? Was it, the inability to stop the run? What do you feel like is going to be the focal point for spring and summer and fall?
Yeah, I think the inability to stop the run, and some of it was, like I said, like inconsistent as far as being able to shed blocks.
Mm-hmm.
I think run fits. There was some confusion there, whether it be from Jihad Campbell, whether it be from Deontay Lawson. Really good players, but the consistency in which you need to be able to do that with your run fits, it wasn't there for, in my opinion, either one of them consistently enough. And when you talk about the run game struggles, that was a part of it. It wasn't just them, but everybody wants to blame it all on the defensive front. And it's like, because you have two really good linebackers, you just assume if they are having trouble stopping the run, that must be that, that first level. But I think second level inconsistency as far as their run fits and stuff really contributed to that. And like I said, I think that's going to be, when you talk about Hill Green and just what I've seen on tape, I think he instantly changes that. And then Justin Jefferson playing next to him, or if it ends up being Deontay Lawson, like I said, I don't know how that's going to look. Lawson and Hill Green, they're not the same player, but as far as being the communicators, the green dot guys, they're both 3 down options. They can play on all 3 downs, but they're not twitched up. They don't have elite sideline to sideline speed, but they both have above average speed, and they can get sideline to sideline. They're very similar. So I don't know if it'll end up being like Lawson playing next to Hill Green, which one's wearing the green dot when he comes back and he's fully healthy, or if it's one of them playing next to Justin Jefferson. But I do think this trio is very, very good.
I feel like we haven't really talked about the in-helmet communication and like what we saw from that this season. What were your thoughts on it? Do you feel like it was – because Alabama, I think it was the first game there were some issues with it. Thinking all the way back, there was that very odd series of, I think there was some shortage in the in-helmet communication on the other team, which made Alabama have to turn theirs off. But then one of the offensive line's helmet came off, and there was all this rotation in an already kind of thin group. All that to say, do you feel like it was a help or a hindrance?
I think it was a help.
Yeah.
I think there's some growing pains that are going to happen there. I think anytime you can get good communicators, not just on the second level, which is where you're going to have your green dot guy 90% of the time, because he can easily communicate with the guys in front of him, the defensive line. He can turn around and relay things to the secondary. I also think having a key member in the secondary who can handle the communicative side of things to kind of complement that, which Alabama absolutely did with Malachi Moore.
Yeah.
That is kind of where you're at your best, especially in hostile environments. So, I couldn't really tell you, like, you might talk to somebody and be like, yeah, we were actually really uncomfortable with it. There was, it didn't seem like there was massive issues. Like, did Alabama's defense get beat? Absolutely. Did they get beat pretty consistently in some games? I mean, you watched that Vanderbilt game. Absolutely. Was it a problem with communication, or was it just a problem with guys being confused? Like, they knew what they were supposed to be doing, but there was still confusion as far as, because it's still a reactive side of the football. So I don't really know. I wouldn't put that on like the green dot. I think that's been beneficial for like Jalen Milroe in the offense. That's a little bit different, because you kind of can become overly reliant on that. And then at a certain point it cuts off with the play clock. So, I think it's a little different for the offense compared to the defense.
That'll be interesting to kind of explore more between, Cover Crimson, the crew that we have here, kind of using some of our resources to get some answers on that, because it was such a big storyline this season of the newness of it. And I remember Coach Womack saying how Deontay Lawson was his eyes and ears on the field, and he praised him over and over for his communication skills, because it's you have to really select that player carefully, because they, like he said, eyes and ears on the field. So going forward, I'll be curious to kind of see what the nuances of that were, and if we'll get more answers on, the pitfalls of it, but then in moments that it was really beneficial.
I think Hill Green, that was the biggest thing. Like, you lose Deontay Lawson, how you lost him. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it's an ACL. How long does that put him out for? I don't know, but it does feel like, based off of Hill Green, the fact that he stops the run well is huge. I think him adding to that room. I think the fact that you were able to keep Lawson, you were able to get Hill Green, and you were able to get Justin Jefferson back. I think those three being willing to do that probably means Lawson knows that he might not be, and I could be completely wrong on that.
Right.
But it just, this Jefferson willing to play the exact same role he did, which is kind of viewed as a starter, but the number 3, would Lawson be able to, would he be willing to take a step back for the other two? Would Hill Green be willing to go from being Mr. Everything, all Big 12 defender for Colorado, to being the number 3 for Alabama? Like, I just think that injury probably is playing a part in all 3 guys being willing to do that. But Hill Green's communicative skills and the fact that he brings a lot of that, I think Kane Womack learned how valuable that is through having Deontay Lawson. And if Deontay Lawson is not going to be available or not going to be full strength for a little while, and like I said, I don't know one way or another, I'm just speculating here, I'm going to get another guy who's a really strong communicator, and he's also an impact player, that would make total sense. So I don't think we're talking enough about the importance of the communication with Hill Green and how that will, potentially offset whatever may not be available, at least for a while, from Deontay Lawson.
I know the season literally officially ended on Monday, but I'm like itching and so anxious to get these questions answered and not have to wait until August, I guess last week of August, to finally see, college football is back. Let us know what your thoughts were on the new playoff format, having the national championship game played a little later in January. We talked about it on Monday, and you guys can go check that video out. We kind of had mixed feelings about it. Clint, I think you're in the camp of more college football is a good thing. I kind of leaned, it feels like, with the good games we've seen from the NFL playoffs, that it kind of overshadowed the national championship. And we haven't really talked about that either. We both picked the Irish, and that did not happen.
Yeah. It definitely did not happen. I don't know how I feel about I want there for so long. Like, I was like, man, can we get something? Can we get more college football in some way, shape, form, or fashion? Like, and I'm kind of starting to lean from a heat perspective. I don't know how it would be, but I think maybe what we're realizing is it's better to start earlier rather than going later, because there is that window, like the first month of, I say the first month as far as getting involved in training camp or fall camp and all of that. But then you get like a couple of weeks where it's just college football, and the NFL regular season hadn't started. Like, you're competing with NFL preseason. If you did start earlier, maybe a week earlier, you would only be competing with the NFL preseason. Everybody would be itching for college football. They're by the time it rolls back around, everybody's ready to get it going. So I think maybe doing it that way. I don't know if they'd be willing to do that. Are you playing games before classes even start? I don't really know how that would look, but I think that might be the better solution to solve my itch for more football. Because, if you guys just want to keep this thing going through the spring, I'm all for it. Play as much as we can possibly get going. But I also understand that everybody else got a ton, of other stuff going on. Now, granted, like the inauguration and all that, that won't be a problem in the next 3 years. So I don't know how much that contributed, but you're right. The NFL playoffs, I'm sure, is zapping some of the interest and all that. I don't know. I think they could change something, but I wouldn't be surprised they kind of left it as is for now.
Yeah, I would imagine that as well. All right, let's do your star rating. Let's hear it.
I really wish I knew Deontay Lawson's health status. Like, what are they expecting from him? What's the trajectory? How bad was the knee injury? Are they? Because I guarantee you, I don't care if he's back. If he is back for game 1, it's gonna take him a little while. He might be back and able to play and all that stuff, but he's not going to be the Deontay Lawson we're used to for at least a little bit. It takes these injuries. It was too late in the season, but not knowing that, I can only put the grade so high. But I love the top of the depth chart. I love the experience at the top of the depth chart. I love the combination of skill sets as far as, and all these guys, I mean, Kane Womack's going to let them get after the quarterback a little bit. I think Jahad Campbell being gone, the fact that he has that edge versatility, they used him mainly as that guy, but Deontay Lawson's been a pretty effective blitzer. Justin Jefferson has too. Nakai Hill Green hadn't done it a ton, but I mean, he's been pretty efficient and effective when he's in his limited opportunities. But I think I love the top of the depth chart. I love like Luke Metz and Abdul Sanders and Duke Johnson. All three of those guys, they're not highly rated, but I'm telling you, Sanders or Metz, I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys kind of pulled an Okoronkwo or a Caden Jones, where it's like, and from a fan's perspective, you're really pumped and excited about seeing them because every time, in the spring, you're seeing them flash, whatever. Mm-hmm. So as you continue to work, like Caden Jones is a guy I really like, is like LB4. So, he kind of seems like he's getting close to being able to contribute. So I think there's depth there. I think the top of the depth chart is really good. Even though some people don't like the lack of star power down the depth chart, I still love it. So, I mean, I'm going to give it a, 4.5 stars. It's one of my stronger position groups, but that is with the assumption that at some point it's early in the season, maybe not game 1 or week 1, Deontay Lawson gets back. If he's kind of not available for most of the season or any of the season for whatever reason, that's going to obviously drop. But I wouldn't go lower than probably a 4.25.
Oh, I like it. 4.25. We have not gotten that one yet, Clint. Thank you for giving us your breakdown. Clint Lamb is one of the best in the business for these detailed analysis. He's played the sport before. He knows, what to expect, what to look for, and he does a really good job of it. Where can they find all of your content?
CoverCrimson.com. All this stuff, like I said, I mean, there's like elements of a national championship team that I've been going through and diving into as far as the research, running back rooms and how it kind of operates, quarterbacks and traits that they have had, run stopping ability, like rush defense. We talked about that yesterday. I talked about it with Mick. Do you need to have a top 25 run defense if you want to win in the national championship? That's been proven ever since the playoff era started. And that's just as far back as I researched. But like, I'm going to be, taking all these notes and diving in, and I'm going to be sharing all of that. It's going to take a while, and we'll be talking about it on these videos a little bit. But as far as the in-depth research and me revealing it, that's going to be a huge thing over at covercrimson.com. Christian Sykes is doing a great job as far as the basketball analysis, pre-game, post-game. Stacy Blackwood does a phenomenal job. So the subscribers do a phenomenal job. Great conversations happening over there. That's where you can find me as far as any of my written content right now. And obviously the YouTube channel right here. Definitely like it, subscribe. And, let's see if we can't get this thing to 10,000 subscribers before the start of next season.
Ooh, that is a good goal. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before the start of football season. I love that. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, ring the bell so you never miss a video of ours. Make sure you're following us on social media at Cover Crimson. We'd love to have you. We love your comments. We love your interaction. We try to get to those. So if you have a thought, if you have a question, something that you want one of us to find out, we are more than willing to get on that and try and find you an answer. But Clint, thank you. And we will see you on Monday at 9:30 Central.